WWE isn't fun to watch. What happened? 2 years ago, we were talking about how WWE was on fire, storylines were great, events were fun, the wrestling matches were great. So what happened here? Well, people have given their reasons. Here are my personal 3 reasons here. First of all, shows are skippable. Second of all, lack of progression. And third of all, flawed marketing. These are the big 3 reasons as to why I myself have not watched any Raw or SmackDown, or have lost faith in trying to watch WWE as of late. So shows are skippable here. So both Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, these shows, in my opinion, are incredibly boring. The reason why I find them boring is because they don't feel must watch. I feel like I can skip Raw and SmackDown and I'm not gonna miss much actually. The most important characters in the WWE don't even appear in these shows here, like John Cena, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, The Rock, at times Rhea Ripley, Io Sky. Sometimes the most important characters, the most popular characters who are going through the most right now in WWE don't even appear consistently on Raw and SmackDown. Or even if they do appear, they don't really do much. Like, they'll come in, they'll cut like a 10-minute promo, and then something happens, and then they walk up and you don't see them again. Like, nothing substantial happens to these important characters on Raw and SmackDown. You know, big things happen to them during PLEs. More like Roman Reigns, who is one of the most popular characters in WWE, he doesn't even wrestle on Raw and SmackDown. He is promoted to go do cool stuff on Raw and SmackDown, but he doesn't even really wrestle. He comes in, does finishers, walks off. So why watch these shows and why promote these important characters to appear on Raw and SmackDown if they don't do anything substantial or they don't appear all that often? So PLE events here, also Raw and SmackDown, they often show recap videos of what happened or the most important storyline beats here. So what's the point in watching these shows here if they're constantly showing you recap videos of what happened here? Why spend your time watching a 2-3 hour wrestling show if you can watch maybe like a 2-3 minute recap video detailing you all the important things that are happening in the story in terms of storylines within a short period of time here? It's technically not optimal for you to watch Raw and SmackDown. Now, if you do watch Raw and SmackDown all the way from beginning to end, you'll pick up certain nuances in the stories here. But for me personally here, I feel like there's not enough personal important nuances happening within Raw and SmackDown for me to willingly go watch these shows over here. It doesn't feel important. It doesn't feel like must-watch TV actually. Every episode of NXT has good story progression, good character development, and the storylines are not explicitly told to you at a weekly basis, so you do have to watch NXT to get what's really happening here. However though, the NXT call-ups as well as the marketing and the PR for NXT has been really bad because the main roster call-ups though have not been doing all that well in the main shows, or if they are doing well, there's a level of indifference to it then, because the characters or the personalities that you know from NXT when they get to main roster are completely different people here. I have Ren Sinclair, Obafemi, Tony D'Angelo. These 3 are my MVPs for NXT in terms of character development, growth, and wrestling. Now, when they go to the main roster, I don't expect these 3 to be the same people. So what's the point in me watching NXT if these characters you know are going to be very different people when they get to the main roster of Raw and SmackDown? NXT is a good wrestling show, but it's a wrestling show that leads to indifference and disappointment, especially when these same characters get called up to the main roster. Lack of progression. Characters don't evolve that much for months or even years. I have here Io Sky, Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, Rhea Ripley. These 4 characters over here, actually, there'll be moments in time where they'll be the exact same person for the better part of months and years, or they don't really evolve or change all that much in terms of personality or their character motivations or whatever they're trying to do actually. Like, truth be told, actually, these 4 who I do enjoy, I wish I could see more of them more often, but for some strange reason, especially if you're a champion or if you're really high in the card, for some reason you don't appear all that much and your character development just halts. You can tell the direction of a character from a mile away here. Like, it's pretty obvious, and you can tell actually where a character is going to end up like 4 months, 5 months, 7 months down the line actually. Often these characters go through returns, or like they're gone for a while then they come back later on, or you can kind of tell who they're going to wrestle, or you can tell what the results are going to be. Pretty much here, the show has become very predictable, so it doesn't feel like I need to care or watch these characters all that much though, because of how predictable some of their past become. Shows and PLEs often feel like a filler, and character development stays stagnant. So yeah, some characters have the same motivation, same personality types, or even the same catchphrase that goes on for months and years. And so what's the point in watching and attaching yourself to a character if that character doesn't evolve or change across the shows here? Why watch Raw? Why watch SmackDown? Why watch SummerSlam? Why watch Survivor Series if these characters are still going to be in the same position as they were before? Marketing is also a huge issue right now currently with WWE. WWE is a pro wrestling show that feels embarrassed to be a pro wrestling show at times. It appeals to people who lack wrestling literacy or don't care that much about pro wrestling. It lost over half its audience in the past year, and I know the criticism. They're saying, well, WWE is meant to appeal to casuals, and I'm gonna talk about the casual wrestling cycle later on here, but that is a very flawed argument here actually. But here it is. So there's a similar form of marketing that happened with Fatal Fury. So viral marketing doesn't mean success or fan loyalty. The game Fatal Fury City Wolves, it was highly marketed in WrestleMania, and Fatal Fury follows the same marketing procedure as like UFC and WWE, in the sense that they think that like if they try to get famous people to promote their product, then it's gonna get more eyes and it'll mean more success or more fan loyalty, and that's not true at all. Fatal Fury got promotion from famous people like I Show Speed, KSI, Cristiano Ronaldo. All those people in totality together get over 1 billion views a year in their social media platforms, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. But the games didn't sell well at all, despite being seen by potentially millions and millions of people out there in the world. Actually, the games didn't sell all that well actually. How can a game that's been promoted, that's been seen by millions of people, don't sell all that well? And here's the thing though, how often does WWE convert people to become fans here? How many people who are just fans of Andrew Schultz, who don't watch pro wrestling at all, became pro wrestling fans? How often, or how many of the people who enjoy Tom Segura or Bert Kirshner, how many of them became converted to become pro wrestling fans after seeing them on Raw? Not that many actually. And here is the wrestling fan cycle over here. I created here the wrestling fan cycle. This mostly focuses on like Western fans in the US here, but most Western fans here start off as WWE enjoyers. They start off at fan level 1. Fan level 1 is the casual wrestling enjoyer. They watch WWE and they enjoy everything about it actually. They love all the characters, they love all the wrestling, they love all the storylines here. Everything is all good and tipsy-topsy, everything is great actually. You're a naive fan and you enjoy everything. That is fan level 1. They transition from fan level 1 to level 2 over here, and at level 2, they become a lot more critical. They're like, I like wrestler A more than wrestler B, or this storyline here isn't as good as I thought it was actually, or there's a specific wrestler who I thought was really good, and then as like months or years down the line came through, they're like, I don't like that performer anymore actually. So you start becoming a little bit more critical. You went from enjoying everything to now developing more of a taste, where you start recognizing like quality of in-ring wrestling. You start noticing people being good in promos or people being bad in promos. You start noticing botches. You start developing more of a taste and you become more critical of the product, and you start to discern what you like and what you don't like about WWE. And then you become fan level 3 over here. At fan level 3, you begin to explore alternatives, which means you backtracking, you're looking back at older matches, at older eras. You begin looking back at the Attitude Era, or the Golden Era of the 80s, or the Ruthless Aggression Era, or the New Gen Era in the 90s. You start looking back at older wrestling. You begin to compare and contrast how wrestling was back then to how it is nowadays, and you get to see like the pros and cons of it actually. You gotta be like, oh wow, back in like 2001, wrestling was really high quality, and now it's kind of like this. Or wow, the philosophy and storytelling in Raws in like 1999 is a lot more different than how it is now. So you can begin to analyze and see how WWE used to be, and you're comparing how it is currently going on right now. And as you do that, as you explore more and go backwards, you get to learn about other companies as well, which includes AAA, CMLL, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Noah, DDT. As you begin to explore more and see wrestling just outside the current modern WWE bubble, you develop a huge taste on what you exactly want in pro wrestling. Then you become fan level 4. At fan level 4, you now watch wrestling with a brand new perspective. You now know about other wrestling companies out there, you now know the history of WWE, and now you're watching the current product here, now knowing a lot of things about the history of pro wrestling or the greater scope of pro wrestling, and you become way more critical of the current WWE product than you've ever had before. You start picking apart all the things that you don't like about WWE in terms of the wrestling, in terms of their character work, in terms of storytelling, in terms of how the product is being promoted. You start becoming a lot more critical of that. And for WWE though, they want you to remain over here at fan level 1. They don't want you to move anywhere else. They want casual fans and they want you to stay as a casual, which is impossible because everybody who watches pro wrestling naturally becomes fan level 2, 3, or 4, or they stop being fan level 1 and they leave and they stop watching pro wrestling. WWE is really good at attracting fans and getting people to see their product, but they're not good at maintaining those same fans. So that's why I say WWE isn't fun to watch anymore. Feel free to comment down why you don't like the current WWE product though, or if there's anything in the pro wrestling industry that you do enjoy or you don't enjoy. Feel free to comment down, like, subscribe if you want to, and once again, I'll see you guys next time.